Welcome to Homework Help. Whether you're studying for the AP US History exam or any other exam that your teacher's inflicting upon you, we've got you covered. Today, we are talking about the development of slavery in North America. To start, it is important to note that slavery had been common throughout history. It was often a byproduct of conquest, and every region in the world knew slavery prior to the 1600s. However, the development of slavery in the British colonies was a little odd, as many of the early British colonies either opposed permanent slavery or had cheap labor filled through alternative means. The rise of permanent slaves within the British colonies was a business decision driven by witnessing successful Dutch and Portuguese slavery in Brazil and in the Caribbean islands, and eventually became the business model for many in the American South. So, to better understand how slavery developed in British-controlled North America, we have to take a quick jump to the Caribbean. England arrived in the Caribbean late and settled Barbados in 1625, almost a century after the island had first been discovered by the Portuguese. After establishing themselves in the Caribbean, they began inserting themselves into the growing sugar and rum trade, which had been developed by the Dutch. It was the business-minded Dutch who turned transatlantic trade into a more efficient system. Dutch ships traveled one way between Europe, Africa, and the Americas without returning home until the whole voyage had been made. This ensured that they were always stocked full of goods. European goods were exchanged in Africa for slaves. These slaves then went to the Americas in exchange for rum and sugar, and that rum and sugar was shipped back to Europe. Before this, slave trafficking by the Spanish and Portuguese was sporadic. The new Dutch system became dominant by the mid-1600s, leading to an explosion of slave importation into the New World. In the 1660s, England jumped into the market to compete directly with other European powers. This has become known as the triangular trade system. Many of the American colonies were established prior to the emergence of the triangular trade, so neither New England nor Virginia initially relied on African slaves for local labor. Instead, this was fulfilled through immigration or indentured servants. Indentured servants, both black and white, earned their passage to the New World by promising labor for a set amount of years, and were freed of their commitment after the terms of the contract had been met. Also, prior to the 1660s, lifelong servants, white or black, had certain recognized rights. They cannot be arbitrarily killed or harmed, and the condition of servitude did not automatically transfer to their family. This changed as the English colonies in the Caribbean became more deeply involved in the triangular trade. African slavery slowly became the dominant source of agricultural labor, and since the American South was growing into a cash crop economy, slavery increased. In the American North, New England became home to a growing collection of Protestant settlers, especially the Quakers, who were strongly opposed to slavery. Thus, slavery never took deep root in their culture. By the 1660s, plantation owners in the American South began to react to the growing abolitionism of their northern neighbors by transforming slavery into an institution exclusive to Africans alone. Colonial laws in Virginia and Maryland were changed to distinguish African slaves from other free laborers. Slavery became inherited. The rights of punishment, even to death, was transferred from the state to slave owners, and slaves were restricted in their movements and communication. This all culminated in American slaveholders developing racist ideologies beginning in the 1700s, which in turn came to dominate the Southern plantation society. Ironically, this all occurred during a growing abolitionist movement throughout England. It was England who eventually eliminated the transatlantic slave trade in 1807, shortly after the birth of the United States of America. While slavery would almost leave the face of the earth on its own time, the development of the cotton gin and spinning jenny in the mid-1800s would revive the fire of American slavery. But that's a story for another time.